Hello, this is John Kogan, the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Meeting the Challenges of Managing a Recurring Revenue Model. Today, the ability to increase revenue with subscription or consumption-based offerings is driving new business for companies large and small. However, delivering the features, benefits, and capabilities necessary to offer these products and services on a recurring basis can be a challenge. At the same time, companies must continue to ensure customer satisfaction and retention, all without adding stress to their IT or financial operations resources. Today's webinar will examine the key issues for finance leaders who are faced with managing recurring revenue while integrating with key existing systems and services. Before we get started this morning, a few items. First off, I would like to thank our sponsor today, ARIA Systems, for helping us make this event possible. ARIA is steeped in today's content, and we thank them for enabling us to provide this education as well as everything else that we do on Performative at performative.com online at no cost to our users. So thanks to the generous support from ARIA Systems. A few items before we get going into today's program. First, a quick welcome to Performative, which is the largest and fastest growing online resource and community for senior corporate finance, treasury, and accounting professionals. It's a wonderful resource of peers asking peers questions and getting answers from peers. It's completely noise-free, no banner ads, and no selling or self-promotion. It's just CFOs, controllers, and the like talking to one another. We'd love to have you check it out if you haven't already. A few notes specifically on today's event. A link to today's presentation and the recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. The presentation itself is actually already posted at performative.com/resources. It should be top of the list there, number 1 or number 2 on the list there. Available for a download if you'd like to download it, print it out, take notes as we go along, what have you, forward it to friends and colleagues. You can feel free to do that. We are offering CPE credits for today's event. In order to receive the CPE credits, you need to have pre-registered for them, and you need to answer all 3 of the polling questions today. We will have one polling question shortly after we start the presentation. Then we'll have a second one at the end of the presentation, and a third one at the very tail end of today's event. If you have any questions at all about CPE credits, please contact Chris Brower, and her email is right there. We would like this to be an interactive event today, so I turn your attention to the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. You might have to hit the plus next to the word questions in order to expand that, but you can ask questions at any time. We've got 2 great speakers who I will be introducing in a few moments, and they are in a wonderful position to be able to answer your questions about today's topic. So please do feel free to ask questions as we go, and we will get to that during the Q&A period, which will be the last 10 or so minutes of today's event. Finally, we will be asking you to take a short survey regarding today's webinar. It's about 60 seconds worth of time. We do it at the very end, and we greatly appreciate your feedback. We always like to know what we can do better the next time, and we do look at these results from every single webinar that we do, and we take that feedback seriously, so we appreciate that. Also, during that survey, we make it very easy for you to request connection with either of today's speakers or with today's sponsor, so that's a click of a mouse away. So please feel free, if you'd like us to help make that connection. We are happy to do that. So we have a number of learning objectives today. We'd like to help folks on today's program understand the opportunities of a SaaS subscription billing system as in-house or on-premise options. We'd like to learn how a subscription billing system can integrate within your company's other systems, ERP and otherwise, and also create awareness of how buying a subscription billing system will impact IT and financial operations resources, will or will not impact those resources. So really this is about subscription billing, enablement, and the impact on your companies. And hopefully by the end of today, we'll all know a lot more about that, led by today's speakers. So, speaking of today's speakers, allow me to introduce the speakers. I'll introduce both of them right now, starting with our first speaker, John Gettinger. He is Senior Vice President of Marketing at ARIA Systems. John has more than 20 years' experience delivering business software applications to enterprises of all sizes. Prior to ARIA, John led marketing for Fortify Software, which was subsequently acquired by Hewlett-Packard, where he grew the enterprise customer base and launched their main product called Fortify On Demand, the company's first SaaS offering. Joining John this morning will be Bob Harden, who's Global Director of Billing Software at Experian. Bob has nearly 30 years of experience as an IT professional in the healthcare and informational services industries, including more than 15 years supporting billing and revenue processes. In his current role as Global Director of Billing Software for Experian, Bob has worked with industry-leading billing, CRM, and ERP packages, supporting a wide variety of delivery models for businesses on 5 different continents. Bob was recently a guest speaker on big data monetization at Oracle OpenWorld. John and Bob, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, John. So I'm just going to kick this off for everybody and give set a little context before we get into Bob's presentation. Thank you, everyone, for attending and hearing what we have a very interesting story for you guys today. Bob Harden over at Experian and what they've been doing in the area of recurring billing. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world, and I think it's interesting to highlight some of this because as professionals, we're all looking to improve our awareness and for career potential and expansion. And I think one thing to really consider and understand is that recurring revenue is more than just a fad. It's actually a change, a fundamental shift in business practices that is happening in the world today, and it's hitting all kinds of different businesses, large enterprises, small businesses, startups. Are all experimenting with recurring revenue in various forms. I pulled together some statistics for the benefit of the audience. One of the interesting things is that I picked up on is that recently someone, I think it was Gartner or one of the other big analysts, was talking about 47% of U.S. businesses have adopted or are considering adopting a recurring revenue business model. So that's extraordinary today. About half the business in North America, and some of them might be yours. And as of course we know that for those of you organizations that might be in the entertainment area, $6 billion in virtual goods revenue. So things like gaming and media and things like that. $6 billion today is being sold online in virtual goods. Another statistic which we actually pulled together with our research is that the average consumer spends about almost $857 a month in subscription services. It's an extraordinary amount of money per consumer in North America. And basically what we've seen from our side of the world is that it's just exploding. And if you're not considering recurring revenue options, you probably will be in the near future. So what does that mean, recurring revenue? And there's actually, we think of it and try to think of it in a very simple way as there's sort of 3 basic models. And I also think of them as a spectrum. On one end, you have consumption only, organizations that are billing on consumption basis. So that could be, for those of you who are familiar with Amazon Web Services, they charge based on the amount of storage or the amount of computing power that you're using. Could be something simple as barcode scans, but basically you're charging on usage based on how much a user is actually using a service. So that's at one end of the spectrum. Then at the other end of the spectrum, there's subscriptions only, and we're all familiar with those because we've all grown up with magazines and newspapers and cable and Netflix and things like that, where you pay a monthly recurring fee and you get a defined set of benefits and offerings for that month. Whether it's a magazine every month you pay and you get one magazine, or something like Netflix where you pay every month and you get access to all the movies that are available through Netflix for that month, as many as you can consume. So those are 2 ends of the spectrum, but there's also in the middle. There's companies that do both subscription and consumption. So, great example of that would be a phone plan. Sprint or Verizon or AT&T, you pay a fee per month for a certain amount of consumption, and when you use up all that consumption, you have to start paying an overage fee. And if you pay a higher subscription rate, you get more consumption. So that's a good example of a subscription and consumption plan that combines both of them. But we see, from our perspective, we see companies all over this spectrum and mixing and matching these these characteristics together and innovating around these. And I think there's a lot of innovation that's happening at this level in terms of how people are trying to charge things. But we collectively think of this as recurring revenue type offerings. So, I think one point I want to impress upon you, if you already work in an organization that's doing recurring revenue offerings, you probably know this. If you're not, then I want to make sure you're aware of it. It is a very, very different way of doing business, and it has a lot of implications, especially for the financial operations in these companies. In the old days, you had this what we call a one-and-done mentality, where you sell something to someone and you give them an invoice, they pay it, and they're gone. And you move from that to this idea of a monthly recurring revenue, where you have an ongoing billing relationship with a customer, and you're seeing them every month or every consumption period or whatever your cycle is, but they're visiting you on a regular basis. And so in the old days, we talked about customer loyalty, and because of recurring revenue, you have a very different relationship with the customer. And so one of the things that we recommend everyone measure is something called customer churn, which is how many people are abandoning your service, how many of your customers are abandoning your service over time. And churn is a significant metric in a recurring revenue business, because it tells an investor or a business owner the health of the business. If you're acquiring 100 users and you're dropping 60 of them after the first 3 months, that your churn is 60% after 3 months, that's not a very healthy business. If, on the other hand, you've got 100 customers and a year from now you've got 98 customers, that's a much healthier business. So churn, this idea of customer churn, is a new concept in the recurring revenue business world. And of course, in the old ways, the one and done, there's a lot of focus on trying to get customers to repeat purchases. So, hey, you bought a mattress from me or a car, come back, and you try to get someone to come back the next time around and buy that car from me. As we know, that's a very difficult thing. In the recurring revenue model, and this is one of the attractions about it, is you've got this idea of customer renewal, right? And so you've got a relationship with this customer. Now the big mission is to figure out how do we monetize that relationship more effectively? How do we sell the customer more stuff, or how do we get them to extend their relationship? Maybe we've got a 6-month relationship. Let's try to get them to go for a year relationship or a year-and-a-half relationship. So very different focus, because you've already got the relationship. So that's one of the big advantages of a recurring revenue business model. And then finally, billings, of course, we talk about that here at ARIA a lot. Is even as a business ourselves, we are a recurring revenue business, so we focus on billings instead of sales. And billings is the net amount of money that comes into your business after you've booked an order. And in the old ways, we had this idea of cost of acquisition. How much does it require to cost me a customer? And now we really look at how efficient am I at growing that relationship and developing it, and what is the efficiency coefficient with that? Am I as efficient as I could be in terms of growing this business? So the bottom line with all this stuff is that for those of you who are new to recurring revenue, it's a very different fundamental shift in your business practices, and that has implications for solutions and systems. And that's one of the things we've asked Bob to get on and talk about, because as a recurring revenue business with Experian, they have a lot of experience about how to run that efficiently.
Okay, so we've come to our first polling question. So thanks for getting us there, John. I'm going to go ahead and launch the first of 3 polling questions. As a reminder, if you are interested in receiving CPE credit, you need to take all 3 of these. And even if you're not here for CPE credit, we'd love for you to take the 10 seconds it takes to answer these questions. They're very straightforward, and actually, if we have time during the Q&A, we'll turn these around and let our 2 speakers today comment on what they're seeing. And everything will be anonymized when it's displayed, so you don't have to worry about anyone seeing how you vote. I'll go ahead and leave this open for another 5 seconds here as we get the last few votes in. And with that, I'll go ahead and close that first one down, and we'll drop you to the next slide. John, back to you.
So, yeah, just to go into this a little bit more, the kind of old world, new world interaction. In the old world, we had a predictable revenue stream. Now you've got a variable revenue pattern. So revenue changes over time, and you've got to be able to manage that. So it's a different it's a different kind of model. I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. In the old days, you had a variable revenue pattern, and one of the big attractions about a recurring revenue business is that you've got a much more predictable revenue stream, and that's one of the big drivers for companies to move to this type of model. Is that you have you can now, because you've got customers on contracts for a longer period of time, you've got more predictability in your revenue stream. In the old ways, we had limited upsell, cross-sell opportunities, especially if you were in a retail type business where customers are coming in and out, and you may not have much of a relationship, if any, with them. One advantage of recurring revenue is it gives you a much deeper revenue potential with customers. You now have an ongoing relationship with them, and so you've got a chance to monetize and upsell and cross-sell and do things because you've got an ongoing relationship with them. You've got to offer new products and services in the context of that relationship. In the old world, we had this, it was very expensive to attract repeat customers, and organizations spent a lot of time scratching their head trying to figure out how do we get someone to come back and buy something for us. And in some businesses, this can be a very big challenge. If you have a type of business where you may not see customers ever again, or they buy, like my conical example of a mattress company, right, where someone comes in, you buy 4 or 5 mattresses in a lifetime maybe, and so how do you attract these people to come back and spend more money with you? And in a recurring model, you have that relationship. So then it's really the question of how do I keep people staying on board? So a very different way of thinking about things. In the old way, it was time-consuming to adapt to market changes, and because the billing systems and the pricing modules and all the things were very locked down, and they were tampered in place. And in the new world, you've got, with recurring revenue, this is something we like to talk about, you've got a lot of options for experimentation and innovation. And we have lots of customers who are really looking at the monetization relationship as an opportunity to figure out how do we get customers to spend more money with us, how do we improve their satisfaction so they extend their length of their contracts with us, and it gives you, because you've got this ongoing communication with the customer, you've got lots of opportunities to experiment and innovate and improve the quality of your relationship with that customer. So that's a few words about I think the benefits and some of the excitement about recurring revenue businesses. I think it's a great opportunity for any company, and if you're not considering it, it's something I recommend that you do. And I want to turn this over to Bob Harden at Experian. Really interesting story about their transition with, especially around the billing system and what they've done in this area to really improve their business. And without further ado, I'll give it to you, Bob.
Thanks, John. A couple of things to just lay some groundwork here. I'm talking primarily to a finance audience, so I think most of you know who Experian is. We help you manage the risk inherent in the credit transactions that you engage in with your customers. We're a FTSE 100 company. We're in the top 50, so a fairly large company, $4.5 billion in sales. I think relevant to this conversation, we have lots of business units operating in lots of countries. We actually do business in 69 different countries, offices in 44 of those countries. And apart from our very large businesses in the U.S., Brazil, and UK, those other business units, other country operations tend to be small to medium-sized businesses. So not too long ago, and let me give you one more piece of information. Most of you on this call are finance people. I'm not. I'm from the IT side of the house, and I'll approach this presentation from kind of an IT perspective. I got called into a meeting, and I want to tell you a story about something that happened here at Experian not too long ago. I got called into a meeting with a VP of product marketing, a couple of our product development directors who are also IT guys because our products are information-based, they're IT products. And I was told that Experian was looking at some expansion opportunities. Now, we're, like many of you, we're trying to grow our business, and we're a $4.5 billion company today. We won't be happy if we're a $4.5 billion company next year. We want to grow. And part of that growth is expansion into new markets. You may have seen a very recent announcement that we have now opened a credit bureau in Australia. In fact, we just opened for Business with live customers there this week. We're also looking at potential expansions into other markets in the EMEA and APAC regions in Latin America. And we also are looking to expand existing operations in those markets. So we operate in 44 countries, and we'd like to grow every one of those businesses. So as the IT guy who has to provide the back office systems to support this expansion, my first question is, what product sets? Experian has a number of products, a number of different types of monetization models that we use. And so my first question is, what products? And the response was, well, that's to be defined. We're in the design stage. We're going into new markets with potentially new products, new delivery platforms. Well, then what monetization models should I be looking to support? Well, we don't really know yet. Our monetization tends to be event-based, and a lot of those are recurring usage types of events. If you pull a credit report today, you might pull another one tomorrow. So we've been in this recurring revenue field as in the way that John defined it earlier. We've been at that for a long time with usage-based, transaction-based, or event-based types of offerings. But at this point in time, as we started this project, the monetization models were to be defined. And oh yes, there's some constraints. We have existing business in some of these areas, and we need to support those existing businesses. We also need to support existing business processes in existing markets with a look towards standardizing some operations across business units and regions. Well, as the IT guy, coming out of that meeting, my eyes are spinning a little bit because I know that what I'm now being asked to do is provide for something that is fairly flexible to meet a wide variety of potential product offerings, and also to meet some additional business challenges. We put together a cross-functional team within Experian, a couple of us from the IT area, someone from product marketing, a couple of finance people, to start looking at how we could support this business expansion. And there were several challenges we needed to look at. One was to provide the business with a low cost to serve. These are small businesses, medium-sized businesses, most of the areas that we're looking at expanding in. Maybe an emerging market where we're doing a new startup. Limited investment. We want to limit that startup investment. We want to minimize the ongoing IT costs and provide some degree of cost certainty so that we can tell the finance person in that business that it will cost you X number of dollars to support this back office system next year, and X number of dollars in year 2, and X number of dollars in year 3. Small businesses, small back offices, so we need low-touch processes. And we wanted to look at whether or not we could support a shared service centers approach across multiple business units or across a region, rather than asking each business to operate all of its own back office functionality. We were looking for rapid time to market, accelerated ramp up. If you've been involved in billing transformation projects, I think the industry standard is 12 to 18 months to ramp up a project like this. We were asked to be ready to go live in about half that amount of time. We also need then to be able to deliver additional products and services quickly. Again, new businesses, new business opportunities, how quickly can we get to market with new products, and we don't want the back office and specifically the billing and invoicing platforms to get in the way of that. We want to reach unserved or underserved market segments, and again, that means potentially new products and services, new monetization models, and at the same time maintain our existing market segments. And again, we've been doing recurring type of billing, transaction-based, transactions that happen over and over again, maybe similar to what you would see in the telco world, where you make a call today, you'll make another call tomorrow on that phone. The same thing with customers pulling credit reports from Experian. So we wanted to maintain that existing business. We also wanted to integrate with existing systems, CRM platforms, and We're a business that's grown through expansion and through acquisition, and as a result of those acquisitions, we own most of the CRM platforms that are known to man. We also want to integrate with an ERP platform, and you'll hear some of the competitors in this marketplace, the cloud-based billing space, talk about the end of ERP, and I think that case is probably overstated. But it may change the way, if you go to a recurring revenue model, it may change the way you use your ERP package. We have a single global instance of Oracle, and actually we've been on stage a couple of times at Open World talking about our single global instance. So I'm not disclosing anything that you shouldn't know. But we're a single global instance, single chart of accounts. We're a model customer for Oracle, and we want to leverage that everywhere we go. We also don't want to leave money on the table. Again, looking to flexibility of products, flexibility of monetization models, the right pricing for subscriptions and usage. If we go from a usage-based contract to a monthly subscription, what's the right price for that? How do we provide upsell, cross-sell opportunities? How do we reduce churn? How do we take those products to market? Now some of those questions are not IT questions. They're product marketing questions, they're finance questions, but they're things that I need to consider because I need to provide the flexibility in the billing platform to support whatever those decisions are. And if you're not thinking about changing the way that you're putting products on the table, if you're not in a recurring model already, you need to start thinking about it. And if you don't think that's true, ask Blockbuster, because they've been put out of business. Or been put into Chapter 11 by recurring business models from their competitors. So that's something that we wanted to take a long, hard look at. And maybe most importantly, the last bullet on the slide, we want to capture relationships, not just orders. And that means probably being able to have the capability to provide the foot in the door promotional types of opportunities. And we want to maximize our customer value over time and really develop long-term relationships. The next slide, I'm going to turn it back to John to talk a little bit about the cycle of relationship within a cloud-based billing application.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I just wanted to throw this up here for the audience because this is something we've spent a bunch of time working on defining, and I wanted to share with everyone, especially for those of you out there who are looking at moving into a recurring revenue model. Obviously, Experian's got a lot of experience with this, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they're experts at this to a very high degree. But for those of you out there who are new to this or considering it, we've built basically a capabilities model that really tries to define some of the key capabilities that you're going to need in a system to approach a recurring revenue business. And the way we look at it is it's a process, and as you move from that foot in the door type of opportunity that Bob described all the way through to actually having an ongoing billing relationship with them, there's a couple different buckets of capabilities that we organize this way. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to organize them, but we thought this would be the most helpful. So there's the whole area of how do you acquire and expand that relationship, and that comes down to things like your product and service mix, your storefront, your CRM integration, so that initial acquisition and when they come back around again, that expansion of the relationship, you've got a bunch of capabilities that you need in that bucket. Then there's the whole issue of service activation and notification. So, for those of you with digital services, how do you provision the service? If you use something like a Netflix, and most of us do these days, that you can swipe your card and within a few minutes, or if not a few seconds, start watching a movie. And so what's going on in the back end in terms of provisioning and hooking all the pieces of that up to make that happen? And I think every business has to consider service provisioning in the context of their business. And then there's a bunch of stuff around customer communication because, as I said, you've got this ongoing relationship. So now communication is a critical part of that relationship, and it comes down to, every month or every billing cycle, when you present that bill, is all the information there? Is it accurate? What happens if customer wants to respond to something? So there's a bunch of issues around customer communication that need to be considered. Tracking and responding. So big issue, track and manage the usage. So what's going on midstream? It's not just a question of every month we send them a bill. You need to do a bunch of tracking and monitoring and metering in between those periods. And of course, the ability to respond to inquiries. If someone wants to change their plan midstream or upgrade or downgrade a service, how do you handle an inquiry coming in from a customer of any type, really, not just a service inquiry? And then, of course, for all of us in the finance area, there's the whole issue of calculation and billing. As we've hinted a little bit around here, the calculation model is much more complicated than in a standard type of business. And if you're doing things like allowing customers to change service plans or upgrade and downgrade services, that can be very complicated, especially when you add the revenue recognition dimension into all that. And so you need a system that really handles that, up to the nth decimal place of calculation to make sure that you're accounting for all this right. And of course, there's what a lot of people think about with recurring revenue, and this is one of the reasons we try to put this out here, is the payment processing side. And many payment processors today do have some kind of recurring billing function in there, a recurring payment function in there. But as you can see, there's a lot more to think about in this. And then there's this concept of dunning, which those of you who've been in the business for a long time understand quite well. Dunning is the purgatory you want to in a recurring monetization relationship. You need to put a customer into if something goes wrong in the relationship. If the credit card doesn't work, or there's a service dispute or something like that, you need a separate process. To figure out what's going on there. You need to put them in what I call purgatory there until you can determine what's happening with the service. Is it, some of the businesses that we talked to initially, they just disconnect a customer, and sometimes it could be simply as you just need to retry a credit card a couple times to see if something was wrong with the credit card processing. And so you want a separate sub-process to be able to put people in, which is called dunning. And then finally, for all of us in the world, we got to have our reports and our dashboards and things like that. So what are sort of the KPIs and the dashboard level metrics that you need? So I think when you think about things this way, you understand some of, hopefully as a little highlight to what Bob's talking about, there's a lot of capability considerations and a lot of process considerations you have as you're moving into this. And this is a great template for analyzing and asking some questions of vendors and thinking about things in terms of requirements internally. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, John. So obviously, we went with a cloud-based solution. That's what we're talking about here today. As a result of a fairly in-depth study, we looked at about 30 different billing packages for this expansion that we're going into, including several cloud-based vendors. We were actually a little bit surprised at the level of maturity we found in the cloud offerings. I think personally I went into this process thinking there was no way that we were going to be able to do what we needed to do with the cloud-based offerings. We just didn't think they were mature enough. And as we got in and spent some time with these vendors, we saw that yeah, there are some capabilities there that we could take advantage of. And some real opportunities and benefits that we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. We wound up with a fully cloud-based solution for acquiring customers through the billing process. We've standardized onto a couple of the leading CRM packages, both on an on-demand SaaS basis. We've used a cloud-based integration tool, Dell Boomi, to connect the CRM packages to our billing solution, which is ARIA. And that solution is working out pretty well for us. We've integrated it with our Oracle ERP platform. We actually use some integration tools we already had in place, and we have our own hosted ERP platform. Recurring revenue models, wherever they make sense. We've been very much a subscription-based business on our direct-to-consumer side, where we sell credit reports or credit monitoring services to consumers. Those are subscription-based. We've tended to be usage-based, event-based, and in some cases fulfilling orders on our business-to-business operations, and we're looking at making a bit of a transition here. We've added subscriptions to our toolkit, to our sales toolkit, to allow our salespeople to make that type of offering available to our customers on a B2B basis as well as B2C. We've hedged our bets a little bit. One of the things we talked about on a previous slide was right-sizing and making sure that we don't leave money on the table by offering a subscription rather than usage. So we'll offer a subscription with overages, similar to what you probably have on your mobile phone at this point, X number of minutes, and then beyond those minutes you pay per minute. Well, we might offer a package that is X number of usage products, and then beyond that you would pay for the overage, or we might do a straight subscription. And I can't give you numbers related to what percentage of our customers might be interested in those types of offers, but there is interest, and we've seen some acceptance of this in the market. Where we can do prepaid, that's great because that helps address our low-touch processes, along with having an integrated solution where we put something in CRM and push a button, and boom, it gets transferred over to billing in a customer relationship. Having prepaid means we don't have to touch the customer on the payment side. There's no collections to worry about. And working with the specific solution that we're working with offers us some flexibility to provide those promotional foot-in-the-door offers where we can give you a 30-day or 60-day or 90-day offer and then automatically switch you over to a more robust solution. We think we've incurred some benefits by going with a cloud-based billing solution. The first one, and this one's near and dear to my heart as an IT guy, and probably for a lot of you on the finance side it would be as well, and that's we eliminated the upfront hardware-software deployment costs. We didn't have to buy any software. We didn't have to buy any hardware. We signed up for a service with our vendor, and that gives us not only a reduced cost and a reduced capital expenditure to start the project, but a more predictable ongoing P&L cost. And it's also allowed us, in our case, because of the solution that we've developed with our vendor here, we've been able to put in place fairly low-touch processes. Another benefit that's really, again, near and dear to my heart is sharing the technology risk with the vendor. One of the things that happens when you buy software is that you have to do upgrades. You know, and the last thing that you want to hear as a finance guy is your IT manager walking in and saying, you know, Oracle has just upgraded the database from 11G to 12C, and they're going to stop supporting 11G a year from now, or we're going to go on extended support on 11G a year from now, which will double our support costs, or we need to upgrade in order to keep the functionality that we have going forward. And that's an expense that's not in your roadmap. Well, in a SaaS cloud-based offering, we share the technology risk with the vendor. The vendor manages the technology, and if an upgrade is required, they do it. It's part of the service they provide. And it's built into our predictable ongoing P&L cost. So the vendor manages the technology, and we manage the business. We manage that vendor relationship, and we put resources into developing new products, our IT resources, because we have limited resources. We can devote more of that to developing and getting new products to market, and less in supporting back office functions like billing. We find a shorter initial ramp up and the ability to add new products, services, and plans almost on a dime. Literally, one of my guys today is sitting down and walking through setup of a whole new set of promotional price plans with someone in our business. They came to us this morning, and we'll have those things in. We'll be working with them, helping them to set these things up this afternoon, and once they've done it once, they'll be able to do it themselves the next time. It's a repeatable solution for us. You know, we did it in one market. We do basically the same thing in another market, and it's scalable for us. So again, we're starting with a brand new startup in one country. It's small to start, and as that business grows, I don't have to worry about scaling up the hardware because the vendor's scaling behind the scenes. At the end of a project like this, we like to sit down, and I'm sure in your businesses you do too, and take stock of the lessons that you learned along the way, and then incorporate those into your existing body of knowledge so that you're in a little better position for the next project that you do. We've done a handful of billing deployments over the last few years here at Experian, including a large enterprise software solution in one of our businesses where, geez, all the numbers in the business case look like phone numbers, down to a very small startup of a new business. And we've learned a few things from those exercises and then combined that with information we've gotten from case studies from across the industry. And there are a few keys that if you decide to embark on a project like this, a few things that you should keep in mind. First of all, that you're looking at transformation. If you're doing orders and managing orders today and you're looking to move into a recurring sales environment, it's transformation. It's a transforming process. It'll change the way you use your existing systems. It may require new systems. It'll change the way some of the people on your teams do their work. And that transformation should be business-driven, not IT-driven. It's a bit of a mistake we made here. I think on this project that I'm talking about here, IT was a little too involved in driving the strategy. And as a result, we end up making some assumptions, and some of those assumptions were spot on. Some of them weren't quite on target. That's probably a kind way of putting it, but some of them weren't quite on target. So strategy comes first, not systems, and then you bring in the IT guys to help you find the systems to support your strategy, but it needs to be driven by the business. You'll end up with a better strategy if it's driven by improving your client experience, client-centric approach. Major telco in Korea, well, in APAC, that serves customers in Korea and other places, did a case study at Open World last fall. They started a transformation process based on what they learned in their client surveys, and the thing they learned was that they were too difficult to do business with, so they set out to become easier to do business with. They took a client-centric approach, and it's been a very successful transformation project. We've taken the same approach here, and we expect to see the same types of results. Standard business processes, enforceable standards with executive buy-in. If you have multiple business units, every business unit wants to do things their own way. And we've had to deal with that here at Experian. This is actually an area where a lot of companies could do better. And you'll find that you just have a much better opportunity to be successful deploying across multiple business units if you're using enforceable standards with executive buy-in. So when the business unit says, wait a minute, I can't do that, it's talk to the CFO or talk to the CEO. And if they say okay, then we'll make the change. And those enforceable standards give you the opportunity to use out-of-the-box technology. And really, you need to eliminate the C word. Customization is a bad word for the IT guys. It's really a bad word for you as the finance guys as well, because customization means that every time you need to do an upgrade, if you get on a standard platform, if you end up buying a piece of software from Sage or from Oracle or from somewhere else, then every time you need to do an upgrade, that upgrade costs more because of the customizations you did the first time you put it in. So out-of-the-box technology, and then measure success. And don't just measure it in terms of IT KPIs. You know, uptime's a nice KPI. Number of adjustments done on a monthly basis is a nice KPI. But back to that telco example, one of the things they found was that they had 4,200 tariff and rate plans, and that over 90% of their revenue was coming from 100% of those plans. And so part of becoming easier to do business with became a business goal of eliminating 90% of those plans. And the system that they purchased was purchased specifically to help them do that. And the system they deployed is helping them in that. And their managers, part of their annual review is whether or not they're making progress in that strategy. So don't just measure whether or not the system is up or down. Measure whether or not that system is helping you meet your business strategy. I could talk for a long time and tell you a lot more stories related to these, but we wanted to give you some opportunity to ask questions, and so I will leave at this point. Thank you for your interest today. I think I'll turn it back over to John, who I think has a polling question for you, and then we'll have a short Q&A.
That's right. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate all of that insight. It's great hearing from someone who's been right in the thick of implementing these systems. I've gone ahead and launched the second polling question. If you have any questions at all for our two speakers, John Gettinger and Bob Harden, then now is the time. We've got a few questions queued up, and we'll start with those. And we'll go ahead and give another 10 seconds here to finish the polling voting here. Quick reminder that at the end of today's webinar, we will ask you to give us 1 extra minute to take our post-event survey. So we appreciate your feedback on that and help us do better the next time. So I'm going to go ahead and close down this question right now. And let's go ahead and hop into Q&A. And actually, the first thing I think we can do is take a quick look at our first 2 polling questions and what the results were, and ask our speakers to comment on these. So question number 1 is, what is your business's position on recurring revenue? And we can see the splits there. Over 53% already into recurring revenue. John, I think you have 47% sort of business-wide average there. And 13% considering. It's interesting that a third has no plans at this point, but based on their business models. John, is this, what do you think of the numbers that we're seeing here? Is this indicative of what you see in the marketplace?
Yeah, it is. It's a little low on the well, it's a little high on the no plans. A couple of the other webinars I've done recently, we've seen, the numbers, maybe 15-20% of people not. But that's good. It's great. We're here to educate people. So and my message is, if you're not thinking about it now, I bet if we came back to all of you, the 33% a year, this would be, half of them would be considering it, because it's just, we're just seeing this trend hitting every aspect of the industry.
Well, and I want to throw something in there. If you're making widgets and selling widgets, which one of your competitors is looking at Widget of the Month Club? Whoever thought you could have bought wine by subscription? But how many Wine of the Month Clubs are there?
Well, recently I saw, just along that lines, my wife, there's now a makeup subscription where you can, like a Netflix for makeup, where you can try out different nail polishes and things and send them back, and on a monthly subscription. It's astounding to me.
Well, some of these things are niche markets, but
yeah.
But if you make a product and you want to grow your revenue, maybe you need to look at hitting that niche market that won't buy your product otherwise.
John, who's driving these changes within companies? Is it the IT organization saying, hey, here's something we could do? Is it the marketing organization saying, here's something we have to do? Is it the finance organization saying, help make our life easier for managing all of this stuff?
Oh, I think it's definitely on the innovation and product and market side. I think, as Bob alluded to, there's really 3 drivers in my mind. There's, kind of the market expansion driver where, like Bob said, you may have a service that's in one segment of the market, and you use a recurring revenue model to try to get access to another segment of the market. I think definitely, competitive advantage, and the Netflix blockbuster dust-up was probably the best example of how someone used recurring revenue as a competitive weapon against an incumbent that I think we've seen. Although there's some other good ones, but it's something we all recognize. And I think the third driver is just trying to make more money from customer relationships, what we call customer monetization, and really trying to figure out how do we get a great customer relationship and just improve on it and figure out more ways to make money from it.
And actually, really quickly on that same question, Bob, what was the impetus at Experian?
Well, we've been in recurring. I mean, by the nature of our product, a lot of our customer relationships are recurring, and if you can lock a customer in, that's one of the things we're looking at here. We sign a deal with a customer for a year on a subscription basis, as opposed to charging them even on a usage basis. Then we know we have their business. We know it becomes more difficult for them to move. It helps to reduce our churn.
All right, let's move on to the second polling question. What is your business's position on using software as a service or cloud-based solutions? And it's a pretty even split, although the second bucket, I guess that one can be allocated either the top or the bottom here. John, what are you seeing? You guys deal with companies who are making new technology decisions on a day-to-day basis. Is the cloud now just accepted and done, and now it's up to the users primarily, or what are you hearing from your customers?
Well, there's a little bit of a selection bias here since we are a cloud business, and so, but I think just having been in the SaaS industry for many years, and so watching a transition from, 2000, the early 2000s to today, I think the trend is definitely towards, SaaS business models wherever possible. And, there's still a lot of the bigger enterprises, or, there's still some security concerns, but as we've seen, I mean, I don't know if you've all been watching the press with the, the hacker, all the press that's been on the hacker, the state players that are hacking into all of our systems and stealing our IP and everything. Companies they can't keep their systems safe anyway. So, in the old days, the security problem has been, companies that are, big banks and stuff who spend hundreds of millions of dollars on security, and they're getting hacked. So, at some point you realize that it's not, you can't do any better than a vendor can do. And so, you got to just move on and look at other advantages that a vendor solution can bring you. So, but the trend is definitely towards software as a service type solutions. I think for all the reasons Bob mentioned, the cost advantages are tremendous, and the flexibility you get from the systems, and the fact that the vendors have taken on a much higher level of service for you than you would typically get from a licensed software vendor. We're much more committed to Bob's business than some of his other vendors because of the fact that we have this very deep integrated relationship. But yeah, the trend is definitely in the direction towards software as a service businesses.
Yeah, I don't want to discount. Let me jump in here. I don't want to discount the security concerns because we had them too, and we did a pretty deep dive with our internal information security team before we made the jump to a cloud-based solution here. We've been in the cloud for CRM for a long time. This was a jump for us. We're looking. I mean, we did our due diligence. We're looking for vendors that are PCI compliant, and actually, I think you're looking at a level of security that with this vendor that's comparable to what we're doing ourselves. So we were relatively comfortable. There is some data that we would never put in a SaaS environment because of the nature of our business, but we were comfortable in taking this out to the SaaS world.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Bob. I've been underselling ourselves, but we've made substantial investments in security on this side, and we basically have global data center class security. Well, our security operation here is on a par with any large enterprise security operation, and customers like Experian and our other customers, we go through stringent security checks before we're onboarded. So. Okay. Yeah, we do a lot of work in that area. Thank you.
Bob, how does your IT organization work with a finance organization on projects like this? Are there dedicated sort of cross-functional team members, or how is the communication opened, and are you guys providing service to an internal customer? What's sort of the relationship and the mentality there?
Yeah, we have a group of SMEs, subject matter experts, who work on a consultative basis with our business, and then and they're experts on both the functional side of the business. We'll have some expertise on the functional side of the business and the applications, and also have some expertise in the technical world. So I've got a guy who can write code, or actually on my team I've got a guy who can write code, who can also probably tell you how to build a better collections operation. But we work basically on a consultative basis, and we have the subject matter experts who sit as the bridge between the business operations and business users and finance leads and the guys who are doing the IT projects.
Great. And one final question here, because we're running out of Q&A time. Bob, can you just quickly address ERP integration with a third-party billing system? Obviously, either your ERP could be upgraded or the billing system could be getting upgraded. How do you keep those in sync with one another and manage the communication cross-system?
Again, we're on the Oracle ERP platform, Oracle EBS Release 12. Some of our interfaces into that system do not make the best use of the technology. We do have a team that supports that, and every time we do a project in the billing space, we involve the technical guys who support those interfaces. We do have standard formats for data going in and out of Oracle, and we work to those formats.
And your billing platform provider gives you plenty of warning when there are upgrades, and you get the
our billing provider has actually promised us that in this case specifically, their philosophy is that changes are incremental, so they won't change what we already have. What they will do is provide net new opportunities, net new capabilities, but they aren't going to rewrite the capabilities that we already have. So they're not going to upgrade us out of our system working.
Got it. Great. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and hit a couple of housekeeping items. We've got a final polling question in our survey. If you have any questions about CPE credit, you can see Chris Brower's email there at the bottom of this page. I'm just going to move through these very quickly. Quick note, we have a tech conference, a live tech conference coming up March 20th at the Hyatt SFO. Aria actually will be there, and there's going to be a lot of great technology if you want to actually look at this stuff and consider not only billing systems, but ERP and budgeting and forecasting, treasury systems, et cetera, all under one roof at one day. Performative is a great opportunity to see that. And you can actually, in the post-event survey, request registration with a click of a mouse button, and we'd be happy to see you there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question at this point in time, and we'll give you 30 seconds to go ahead and take that. During this time, I'd like to pause and thank John and Bob for your time and insight this morning. Great job, guys, and really appreciate getting all of that information in from two folks who are just buried in it every day. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
You bet, our pleasure. Also, of course, thanks to our friends at Aria for sponsoring today's event. Great information. Thanks to them for helping us get speakers today as well. They obviously are a great resource, and in the post-event survey, if you'd like to be connected with either John or with Aria, we make that very easy to do. So please feel free to make that request. We're going to go ahead and close out that poll now, and we'll go ahead and close out today's webinar. As a reminder, when I do shut this down, you will be sent directly to the post-event survey. We appreciate you giving us one final minute. It's very quick and simple, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. Thanks again to everyone for your time this morning. We hope to see you again at performative.com or at another Performative event. Take care, everyone.